boy was lying in bed, very ill. And you know how young children, when they're ill, how miserable they feel, not knowing what happened to them. So to liven up his spirit, his father brought him a gift. The boy woke up with a start. What is it? Like all young children. And he opened the wrapper, and it was a magnetic compass. And he was fascinated because he kept shaking it and turning it around, but whichever way he held it, it always pointed in one direction. Now, that was a momentous gift, perhaps the gift of the century, because the boy's father was Hermann, the boy was Albert, their surname was Einstein. Okay? And Einstein said, when he turned 75, that it was a gift of the magnetic compass that made him wonder if there's an invisible force in the world, in the universe, behind everything. And as we know, he spent the rest of his life trying to find that. So it's kind of appropriate given trying to find Einstein in the village. Now, more than a century later, I was a sort of soulless banker living in London. I'm not saying all bankers are soulless, but I felt somewhat soulless. When I read a story in the Times of India about a village boy, he was a cowherd. You know, this morning Dr. Hanimi Reddy was telling us about his life and the buffaloes and the village and all that. And it struck a chord because I read this story about this village boy where in his village all the cows were dying from some mysterious disease. And no one understood why that was happening. The boy happened to be sitting somewhere, and there was this one solitary cow that was still alive, eating from a pile of garbage. And suddenly he made a connection that, hey, maybe there's something in what the cow is eating that's giving it protection against this disease. So he went ahead and analyzed the garbage. It became a sort of science project, and he won a science prize at the national level. So, you know, whether it was young Einstein back in 1884 or 1885, or this boy in 1998, 99 in a village in India, I think it was Anantapur. What do these stories tell you? You know, I think they tell you the value of curiosity, the magic of wonder, and the power of passion. In fact, Einstein attributed his remarkable insights and so on to curiosity, obsession, and dogged endurance. So, when I read about this village kid, I thought to myself, you know, this foundation that I was thinking about creating at that time, if it could trigger these sorts of behaviors of curiosity, of observation, of exploration, of association, connecting the dots, and then making things happen. If our foundation can do that, then I would be a happy man. So anyway, in the late 1990s, early 2000s, I went back to India to start Agastya Foundation along with Mahavir, whose sister is here today, Manju. She lives in the Bay Area. Mahavir is the managing trustee of Agastya. My father, Dr. Iyengar, who was former chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission, and Balasundram, the former principal of the Rishi Valley School in Andhra Pradesh. And we all looked at what does Indian education lack. Now that might be true of many other countries, but we were focusing on education. And of course there's literacy and there's access to elementary education, and all of that is important. But we focused on creativity, the spirit of inquiry. And we said that's really what we need to trigger. Dr. Hanimi Reddy was referring to being, you know, the children of Nehru. Nehru used to talk about the scientific temper. And in fact, it's enshrined in the Indian Constitution. And Iyengar said very clearly, yes, but our biggest failure is that we never disseminated the scientific temper to the masses of India. So yeah, we produced an atom bomb, or we're sending satellites up to the moon and so on, rockets. But that spirit, whether it is in science or in the arts or the humanities, that general, those habits of mind, of questioning, of observing, of experimenting and discovery and so on, never really went down to the masses. And it's not that you're born an experimenter or born an observer. You may be born curious, right? But we very quickly douse that spirit of curiosity in our school system. So you can learn these skills. You can learn to be more curious, more observant, better at experimenting, discovery, and so on. So we said that should be the mission of the Agastya Foundation, to spark curiosity, to nurture creativity, and most important, to instill confidence. Because unless you have self-belief, I didn't ask Dr. Hanimi Reddy because we didn't have time, but some other day, Dr. Reddy, I'd like to come and interview you, because I interview a lot of people, children and people from different walks of life, just to understand and gain insights on what gave him the confidence and self-belief. Because that is critical. You know, Venkat keeps saying that. Am I right, Venkat? Yes. Right. So we said, that confidence and self-belief is very important. In fact, I remember years ago going to a village near our Kuppam campus, and you always wonder, all this work you're doing, is it having any impact? And how do you measure that impact and all the rest of it? So I went to a school, it was hot and dusty afternoon, and I asked the teacher, look, your children have been coming to our campus. Has there been any impact? And she said, well, speak to this girl, Uma. So I went up to Uma and said, yes, Uma, how has this affected you? Coming to our Kuppam campus, doing all this hands-on science and so on. And I thought she'd say, I'm doing very well in science, I enjoy science, etc. Now it turned out that she did, but that wasn't top of mind for her. Because she looked at me and said, sir, I'm not afraid to speak anymore. And that was sort of my aha moment. I said, holy cow, maybe the real value of all this work that we're doing, yes, we're teaching science, we're teaching kids to be more observant and so on, is that somehow that's leading to a inner sense of self-belief and confidence when she said, I'm not afraid to speak anymore. Now, Uma, it turned out, did very well in her tests. I can't take responsibility, claim credit for that, because we were not tutoring her or anything. But she did very well. She became the first girl from her village to join an engineering college, and her example spurred another 20 girls to want to join college, and they ended up in college. So it was huge transformation. So instilling confidence and self-belief through the way we engage with children is really, really important. So what you saw in that film, there's the science happening, but there's also the sense of, self-belief that is being nurtured and reinforced. That is what really matters. I remember reading about Narasimhaya, a great educator in Karnataka, when he died some 10, 12 years ago. And there was the story, he says, of when he was a young kid, Mahatma Gandhi happened to pass through the town. And as luck would have it, Gandhi spotted this Narasimhaya, just went up to him, put his hand on his shoulder and said, you look like a future leader. And that was it, and he walked away. And Narasimhaya said that was a transformative moment. I was never the same again. I was just filled with that confidence. So really the behavioral impact of anything you do is so important. Now, so we said curiosity, creativity, confidence. A great Romanian sculptor, a guy called Brancusi, said that simplicity is complexity resolved. So I was thinking, how do we make this a little bit more simple, that our teachers can understand exactly what our mission is? And the answer popped out to me in the form of this little top. Okay? So the beauty about this top is you put it on a table, it sits on its bottom, because that's where its weight and center of gravity is. It may not work, it may fall down. but you spin it and it tips over and spins on its stem. And when you see something like that, at least for me, you go, ah. So we said, when you go, ah, or array, wow, your mind is awakened, your curiosity is stirred and stimulated, and that's really important for all these kids. They've got to first awaken, and a sense of interest has to, be lit before you can engage with them. So the R is really, really important. The second thing is, when you see something like that happen, you wonder, why did that happen? How did it happen? Could it happen differently? And this is not that trivial. There's a picture on the internet of Niels Bohr and Wolfgang Pauli looking at this tippy top, smiling, in their suits and ties in 1951. And I guess they're trying to figure out the math of it or the physics of it, why it happens. And if you do figure out, you experience the famous aha effect. So we said ah and aha, curiosity and creativity, are profound ways of learning, in fact of being, of living. The third thing is you must have fun doing what you're doing, which is a ha-ha effect. So that breeds confidence. So we said ah, aha, ha-ha, curiosity, creativity, confidence is really what we are trying to do. And so we switched. We went to our staff and said curiosity, creativity, confidence. Another way of putting it across is ah, aha, ha-ha. And guess which went down faster and which they related to and understood better? It was the ah, aha, ha-ha. It almost sounded like a chant, right? So that is what the Agastya Foundation is about. We've reached, as Raju was saying, over 10 million children in ways that I don't think they had ever been stimulated before. And we've developed case stories, hundreds of case stories of cases like that village cowherd of transformation. I could, narrate a lot of them because I've interviewed a lot of kids. But I'll just tell you one story. I went up to some kids in North Bangalore from a government school, pretty poor kids, and asked them, why do you come to Agastya? And they said, sir, it's because of things like this. They're so interesting. Those astronomy models and, the green, yellow, and all that, the CNN lady was touching. And the models are fabulous, that's why we come. So I said, I'll tell you what, we will gift you a whole set of models and experiments to your school. Will you still come? So they thought for a bit, maybe they were trying to impress me. I don't know. And they said yes. So I said, why? He said, well, sir, actually the models are very interesting, but the important thing is how the teachers bring them alive in the classroom. The Agastya teacher knows how to do that. Our teachers don't. So I said, brilliant point, brilliant point. So I'll tell you what, we will train your teachers to teach like this. Okay? Now you've got the models and the trained teachers. Will you still come to Agastya? Now maybe they were really trying to impress me this time because they thought for a bit and they said, and I was surprised, yeah, we'll still come. Why? You got the models and experiments, you got the trained teachers, why will you come? And they said, because the Agastya teacher treats us like a friend. So, at the core of all this is the connection, is the sense of humanity. And I had independently read some research in the US. I was reading. And again, it was a kind of click moment. And the research said that, they studied rats and they call it the LG effect, the licking and grooming effect. Okay? And what a difference it makes biochemically to the brain. There are two things, the incentive processing system and the executive function capability. And they found that the licking grooming effect makes a huge difference. They refer to it as high quality mothering, especially for children who come from difficult circumstances.